Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
I'm Scott.
I'm John.
And we are the SweetTeaNoShade knitting podcast.
That is true. We're also still married.
And we're married.
You forgot again. It's so hurtful.
I always forget that we're married.
I know. It's been so long.
I never do it the same twice. I am SweetTeaNoShade on Instagram and Ravelry and here on YouTube.
I am ILoveYouIKnow on Ravelry, but my Ravelry account's been pretty much
I haven't done much with
abandoned
Ravelry
for a while. But I'm John Asbury on Instagram.
And I have my big dumb cup with my sweet tea in it. What do you have?
I have my Universal Studios cup. I should probably not cover that up. With some herbal tea in it.
Cool.
Spice.
And we're doing something different with the audio this time. So we shall see how that goes.
Yep.
And I'm wearing my favorite shirt. This is my favorite shirt that I've ever owned in my entire life. I bought it in Dublin when we were in Dublin. And I never wear it because if I wear it, then I have to wash it, and then I can't wear it. So I bought it. I haven't worn it since I bought it in Dublin. Which was this past July.
Yes.
I mean, it is a warm shirt. It's a very thick, warm shirt. We bought it at that... Do you remember the name of that store that we bought it?
It was like Irish Wool Mill or something like that.
Yeah, but it's... I think they call it a grandpa shirt, but it's got small buttons up here and then normal spaced buttons at the bottom, and I'm obsessed with it. It's my favorite shirt.
And it's collarless, which you like.
Oh, yeah, I do like that. It's... Don't they call that something?
A Nehru collar?
Yeah.
I don't know. This is not a fashion podcast.
Well, you know.
I mean, sort of.
I mean, if you've met me, I mean, I'm all about fashion, obviously. So it is cold and snowy here in Minneapolis. We just got back from Mexico.
Which was fabulous.
It was fabulous. We went with a group of friends to Puerto Vallarta.
See.
And we were there for about 5 days.
Yeah.
And we went on a boat cruise, and we did a lot of sitting around and relaxing, and eating and drinking and sitting around and relaxing.
And just enjoying the feeling of the sun.
That's true.
So
since
we
didn't have to wear 15 layers to go outside. So that was a lot of fun. So we're back, and we're trying to get back into the swing of things. But we have some knitting stuff. And I'm sorry, this is going to distract me over here with the audio showing. But we're here to show you some knitting stuff. And then we always do the first half knitting, and then the second half we do kind of a movie review segment. And we always talk about the best movies and the worst movies of a particular year based on the Academy Awards and the Razzies, the Golden Raspberries.
Yep.
So, do we have anything else interesting to tell?
So, I wanted to give a shout out. So, right before Mexico, Scott went down a day before me. I went back to Bowling Green for a little bit to go to a really dear family friend's funeral. And, which was both sad, obviously, but also really wonderful because it was, I got to see all these family friends who haven't seen, most of them since we got married, and some of them even longer than that. And I have to do a shout out to Leslie Weigel, who I know is a listener of this podcast.
Yes.
She is probably, in terms of, mentors in knitting, probably up there. I just remember when we were little, we'd go over to her house, and she was always knitting something. And this is the 80s, back before knitting had the whole cool.
Before knitting was cool,
right? And I remember she was the first person I ever saw knit something that wasn't the grandmother from Sylvester and Tweety. And yeah, always she was sitting there having conversation, she'd knit a sweater. But when I started getting into knitting and needed help, and she was always on the phone or always willing to go to a yarn shop with me and stuff like that. And it was very funny because she and her daughter Lauren both knit. And they're both wearing their Power Stephen West shawls the whole time.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
It was really cool. And Lauren, it was funny because it was just really cool seeing them again. I don't think I'd seen Leslie since we got married. If not, I can't remember.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So it was just really nice to, see old friends, particularly in regards to this podcast. One of the people who I first got me on my knitting journey.
Knitting journey. Your journey with knitting.
Journey with knitting, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, because I'm sure we've talked about this over the years as we've been doing this podcast, but knitting was always... Nobody in my family knit, but almost every woman in my family crocheted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just remember knitting being this weird thing that, like, probably the Yankees did. Or that was just really complicated and nobody ever did it. Right. So I don't think I ever saw anybody knitting. I don't think I ever saw anybody knit until I met you. Like close up.
Right.
So I think.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's somebody and I'm forgetting it. But anyway.
Anyway. I digress.
Yeah, so that's cool. I don't think I have anything. Oh, he buried the lead. I have a new niece. Kind of a big deal. Her name is Tatiana, and she was born on the 3rd of February. Her birthday is going to be like yours, easy to remember because she's 2-3, and you're 11-12.
Right.
So, so she is already at home, and she and her mom are doing great, and it's really cool because her older brother, Santiago, was born very, very early, and so they weren't sure how this pregnancy was going to go, and it went wonderful, and she's doing great, and so can't wait to go down and meet her.
Yes.
So been getting updates from Betty Ann, who, of course, has to make it all about her, so she was there in the middle of everything immediately. No,
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
She tried to live with the baby, actually.
She tried. Tried to steal Tatiana and take her back home.
Well, you know that Betty Ann has been dying for a little girl.
Oh my God.
I mean, present company excluded.
Present company excluded, of course. Even though she tried to make me into a girl.
Yeah. She only halfway succeeded.
So, yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, that's kind of a big deal.
That's kind of a big deal, yeah.
Nope.
Nope. But my plan is to do the baby blanket that you did.
Mm-hmm. The Nebula one?
The Nebula one, but with different size yarn. And I'm going to use leftover scraps, whatever, from the baby blanket I did for our neighbors.
Yeah.
And just kind of let it flow from color to color.
That'd be super cool.
I have to look at the pattern because I wonder if I should do like the ridges as white and do the rest of the colors that kind of the knit stitches as, the background color. That you did as blue as like the bits and pieces that I have left over of the what's it called? I'm thinking polyester. What's it called when the colors are very light?
Pastel.
I could not get polyester out of my head. Pastels running in the background, and the bumps on the top instead of black, be white.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool.
Yeah. So, anyway.
That sounds great.
You'll have to... I'll look at the pattern. I'm sure I'll be able to figure it out. But since you've already done it, you can help me. So I have...
Oh, I should... Was that completed last time we... Yes, it was, because I completed the podcast and I sent
you mailed it. Yeah.
Okay.
So I have 2 newly finished objects, which are blocks from that Afghan.
Right.
And then I have a work in progress that's been, what's the term for that? It's been languishing, not in the naughty pile because I love
it.
Purgatory, I guess. But yeah, so we can...
And I only have my stuff, which is the same as the blanket stuff. So why don't you do your Purgatory thing, and we do the...
Oh, do the blanket together?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds perfect.
I got one acquisition, so...
Yeah, okay. Okay, so... this is in my Dogfish Head brewery bag. Because, that's your common knitting bag. So this is... I've been working on this for a while. I showed this before, and I haven't shown it in a while, and I'm wondering if... I thought I would show it again because I picked it up, and it's what I'm working on outside of the mystery blanket knit-along that's going on. So this is the... page. Sugar Glider Cardigan. And it's designed by Joey Clavey. And he had a shop. So it's designed by Joey Clavey, and he had a shop in Lakewood, Colorado, called Elevation Yarn
Littleton
and Co.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in Littleton.
Yeah.
So I don't know if. Well, I know this. I don't think the store is there anymore.
The
but
store
I don't
shut down a little bit.
But I don't know if he's still dyeing yarn or not. If they had yarn dyeing business, but if it is, I'll put that information in the things. It's the Sugar Glider cardigan. Just the story behind this was that my friend Jenny saw it on TikTok with Joey's husband, the designer's husband. Is it Joey?
Yeah.
All of a sudden I'm doubting myself. Yes, Joey's husband was wearing it, and Joey had, I think, knit it for his husband.
Right.
And his husband's on TikTok, and he was showing it, and Jenny, my friend Jenny, messaged me. He was like, "Oh my God, can you make that for me?" And so I'm like, "I bet I can find the pattern," and I did, and so I've been working on it. But I'm working on the part that's the biggest part of it, which is basically the entire back. Well, actually, it's all of it except for the collar, now that I think about it. It's all of it except for the collar. So, I am at the end of a row, I hope. Yes. So it's brioche. Can you help me?
Yeah. You want to hold one end, or?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
So, actually, hold it like this.
Okay. Oh,
So that's how it's going to go. So this is you're seeing the inside of it. The camera is seeing the inside of it. And it's got all the bright colors. This is the green is the back middle. These are the wings that are going to connect from the body to the sleeves. And if we turn it around, it's the
opposite.
The opposite, and it's the outside. The camera's now seeing the outside. So it's brioche, and so what I've chosen to do is the beige for the outside, and then the bright colors for the inside. So this is going to take a long time. I was doing it religiously, and then I think because of being sick, I had stopped knitting, and then when I got back interested in knitting,
the blankets started happening.
And I got over being sick. It was thanks to Betty Ann and her influence. Her can't think of the word. I'm really bad with my words today. But the beige and the green yarns are from what is this? Farmer's Daughter Fibers. And so this is Bonsai, which is the green. Pishkin is the base, and it's Montana and Wyoming Rambouillet. So and it's the beige is just the same yarn in a different colorway, which I don't have in front of me in the moment. And then eventually the multicolor is going to blend into a different multicolor because I'm going to end up running out of yarn. But right now it's two skeins of fingering weight held double to match the weight of this yarn. And it's I want to say it's a Dye Monkey Yarns yarn. So I just wanted to bring it out, show it again, because I'm working on it actively again, and it's the project I'm working on in between the blanket squares.
Well, it's just funny because like with two color brioche, you have to reteach it to yourself a little bit every time you start it back up.
Yeah, but I mean, once you kind of helped me do that, it was actually really pretty easy. Yeah. But it's going to take a long time because you knit with double. I don't know if that's true with single brioche, but with double. Or sorry, I don't know if it's with single color brioche, but with two color brioche, you have to knit every row twice.
Yes.
So is that true with single color brioche?
I don't think so, but I can be wrong.
Yeah. So anyway, working on that, and it's super fun. Yeah. So have I stumped your brain?
Because with single color brioche. Yeah, you're just knitting back and forth flat.
Yeah. And the yarn,
but you're also knitting the front and the back of one row.
Yeah.
Each time you go across. So.
Yeah. And just shout out to Dandelion Fibers yarn shop. That's where I got the yarn for this. And I wish I had more yarn to buy because I love that shop. I love all the shops pretty much that we go to. The ones we go to regularly are now Dandelion Fibers,
Harriet and
Alice,
The
Yarnery,
Stephen B, and Darn It Anyway,
and
Three Kittens Fiber Arts,
Yeah,
we are very
blessed with yarn stores.
There are a lot nearby. I think it's something about living in a cooler climate.
Yes, and with a lot of Scandinavian settlers.
Yes.
So, all right. Do you want to go next?
Sure. I'll do my acquisition, and then a funny story. So this is the most recent acquisition I have. It is from Trilogy Yarns. It's from their crinkly, loud color. It's from their Broadway colorway. This is Merino MCN Cashmere Nylon DK, and it's called Maybe Happy Ending. So this is a yarn club that Trilogy Yarns is doing, and it's based on Broadway musicals. And I had never heard of the show, but I sure do like these colors. I think this would be a good
Christmas present that I got you.
It was a birthday present, I thought.
Oh yeah, birthday present. That was a Christmas present.
I thought it was a birthday present.
Oh yeah, probably birthday since you've gotten
like three
months of it now.
So anyway, really lovely. I think this will be a really cool color to do as part of like a color work thing, where you
like
have
a solid
and then this somehow. I don't know, but I love these colors. I don't know what they picked to show, but
so you haven't looked up the show or anything?
No, not at all. Okay. And it also comes with these two little
those buttons?
No, those are the things you put on the end of your needles to keep things from slipping off.
Oh, needle minders or needle tip minders or something. And this month that she put, I mean, I think in some of the other ones she's put little things, but in this one she said specifically that she put a couple extra little things because there was a delay in her getting the yarn and all that kind of stuff. So since there was a delay, she put a couple little extra things in there.
We got gummy bears, so yay.
Yay.
But yeah, again, really lovely. The other funny thing that happened to me is I was in Mexico, and I, of course, brought my knitting. And
do I know this story?
Yes, you do, because you were there. And I had flown with the same knitting bag, basically in my carry-on from Minneapolis to Nashville, Nashville back to Minneapolis, from Minneapolis to Puerto Vallarta. Everything was very good and all dandy, no problem. But at security for the Puerto Vallarta airport, they scanned my backpack, and they're like, no. And I was like, I don't know what's in here. And they pulled it out, and my knitting needles, which were Chalgu, I think 3-inch interchangeable tips.
They were much longer than 3-inch. I think that was the problem. I think they were 5-inch.
Maybe.
They were long ones.
They were long.
4-inch.
4-inch, maybe. So those got confiscated. And the thing which was a problem was because it's for this blanket, and there's two different needle sizes that I'm using for the blanket, I had both tips of needles in the bag. So two needle tips went away, which I'm not
Two sets of needle
went away. And I'm like, that's fine. I not mad about that. I just wanted to knit on the plane. So
you just wanted what?
To knit on the plane.
Yeah.
So it's like a 4.5-hour trip from Puerto Vallarta. I'm like, I'm gonna get this square done, and I'm like, wah, wah. Nope. Not without needle tips.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with the length.
Yeah, I think these are 4-inch tips, maybe.
Yeah. And the thing was that you were standing there, and I could tell you couldn't figure out what it was, and I saw the guy going like this.
Right, and I'm like,
and I was like, it's your knitting.
Gotcha. Yeah,
because he was going like this.
I was like, strangulation. I do not know. So, but that was fine. Again, these things, that's the risk of being a knitter.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So. Okay. Well, so I guess now we'll stop and I will show my squares.
Why don't we introduce the project and then we can show the squares? And why don't we could do...
Can you hand me that?
Yes.
All right, so this is the mystery...
People might have first-time viewers here. We shouldn't assume.
Oh, that's true. So this was this is the mystery blanket knit-along that Berroco is hosting. It's a year-long thing. The dog is under the table, so he's going to try to eat your
gummy bears.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You can't do stuff like that. Okay, this is the mystery blanket knit-along that is being hosted. What are you eating?
Gummy bear.
That's really rude. I'm just kidding. Oh my god. You're so hungry you can't wait to... Mystery Blanket Knit-Along, hosted by Berroco. It's a year-long knit-along, and each month you get a new pattern. So, and I think it increases in difficulty, is my understanding. So the first... so you make 20 blocks, and then at the end you connect all the blocks together. In January... Oh, sorry, now I'm confused.
Texture 1, texture 2.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. Okay. So January was 2 blocks. February, the patterns come out the first Thursday of every month. This month, for February, there are 6 blocks that you do, but they're all the same pattern. You just vary the colors. And you use all of your colors. So I am going to now show mine. So I've gotten both of the January blocks done and one of the February blocks done. So I have 5 more February blocks to do. John, those are mine. I'm eating them. Okay, I'm hoping that you can hear the audio okay still. But this is block 1. And I've pinned it. I'm trying to pin them so that they're 12 inches, which is what the pattern calls for. My gauge, it's fascinating because my gauge is much smaller than John's gauge. Like, my squares are like 3/4 the size of John's squares.
Can I just do a comparison?
Yeah. Well, so mine is blocked out to 12 inches, so...
And mine is not blocked.
No.
And it's much bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
the story of my life. John's is much bigger.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so... Okay, take that away for a minute. Okay, mine's blocked. So I'm going to go... So if you go up close to it... Now, John, being colorblind, we've talked about this... Actually, it's kind of fading as it dries. You can't really tell it as bad in this, but I washed using... I think it was Eucalan. And I washed all the blocks together, and one of my colors is a dark, kind of a wine red crimson color. And so that bled and created like a pink stain on this cream color. You can kind of see it the most right there. Yeah. But I
can't see it at all.
Yeah, John being colorblind can't see it at all. But I don't know if it was because... well, first of all, I probably shouldn't have done them together. Second thing is, maybe I left it in there too long. Yeah, I don't know why it bled, but as it dries, it's not so bad. And it's not the end of the world, but... so I pinned it. I'm going to say I pinned it assertively, not aggressively. But I wanted it to be 12 inches. And I know that, when I do... At the end, you're going to knit them all, or we're going to connect them all together, but I wanted to... I think what I'm going to do is block them as I go so that they're all 12 inches in size when I get to the end.
Okay.
And I think it'll just be easier that way. Okay, so I'm going to pause there. Alright, so this is the second block. So this is the second January block. Are you going to say something?
I feel like it actually goes this way.
The other way?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right, I'm sorry. So, yes, I think that's right. So, do you knit bottom up or top down?
Bottom up.
Because, I think this is the cast on edge.
Yeah.
So it'd be top down. I think this was my...
Yeah, looks here.
This was my cast off edge, I think. I don't remember. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I was just curious. So, what was I going to say about this? I'm going to zoom in. And so the only thing that I did wrong on this one is you can see that so this is the diamond shape.
Mm-hmm.
That's made from the pearl bumps, and then you've got this knit stitch centers of the diamonds. Well, I repeated 2 or 3 rows, 2 rows in here, and so you can see that the center of these diamonds is wider than the other ones. But again, not a big deal.
Cool.
So I like this one a lot. It was a lot of work to follow this pattern. It's one you're working on right now.
Yeah.
And this yarn, well, actually, when I look at it outside, like not looking at the camera or not looking through the camera, you can tell better. But like, it was a lot of work for not much
Payoff?
Well, it's just hard to see, you
Right.
know? And so that's the only thing I wish it was a little bit more jumped out at you or something.
Gotcha.
But anyway. Okay.
Cool.
Okay, and this is the 1st February, so you do 6 of these blocks, but you use all of your colors. So at some point, wait a second, how does that work? Because there's 5 colors total.
But you probably use varying amounts in each one. Because
Yeah.
there's 5, there's
5
6 blocks, there's 3 colors per block, that's 18. Maybe there's 6 colors?
No, there are 5 colors.
Okay.
Because the 5th color you don't use until the center of the very last of the 6th square.
Okay.
But anyway, it doesn't. I
digress.
matter.
We digress.
Yeah. So this is, you start from the top, or you cast on. Oh no, you cast. That's right. You do it in the round. That's right. You do it in the round, and then you knit from the outside in. And so these are decreases that go all the way down to the very middle, kind of like at the top of a hat, the brim of a hat.
Yeah, or it looks a little bit like a raglan too.
Yeah. So I really like doing this one. So I cast this on and did a couple rows, and then I put it down, and then so yesterday we watched the 2 movies we were reviewing today, and so I got this done during those 2 movies. So I'd say this is probably 6 hours of casual knitting to get one of these blocks done. And I'm not a very fast knitter, so
right. With lots of we didn't knit continuously the whole time. We were like folding clothes, and we were talking about the movie
true.
and stuff like that. So it wasn't
It wasn't constant knitting the whole time. But yeah, so I obviously haven't woven any of my ends in, but and this one the color didn't bleed on the center square. So I've got 5 more of these to do, and then I'll be caught up for February.
Awesome.
Probably just in time to get the March pattern.
Maybe. You never know.
So
for me, in my sexy mailman bag, so y'all have already seen this one. This is the same, that first square with the basically the checkerboard pattern. Different color. Obviously, our gauges are a little different. But yeah, so I finished this one, I think, yesterday? Yes, I did.
why is there? Oh, was that a cat eating
I believe
your yarn?
so. I believe there's a
Just yarn in the middle.
extra thing. And then I have just started that second square, and this is how much I have. So, and I started this morning. So I like this. Yeah, I find this really fun, and I think this this pattern, which in this thing is pearl bumps and knitting, would look really good as a colorwork pattern too. Like do it on a sweater and have that be the whatever. Anyway, so I'm going to be catching up to Scott for a little bit, but I'm pretty sure we shall make it after all.
Okay.
Anyway, whatever. So yeah, that is that. Awesome.
All right. Okay, so what else have we got? Is that all the knitting content?
I think it's all the knitting content we have.
Okay. All right, so I think we're now transitioning
Yeah,
to do our movie review.
I know.
All right, so we are here to talk about 1985 Best and Worst Picture.
Yes.
And we always start with the Best Picture
Mm-hmm.
and end with the Worst Picture. And so we are going to start with Amadeus, the
Amadeus.
best picture of 1985.
Ooh, rock me, Amadeus.
Oh my god.
I
What year was
love
that
that.
song popular?
The same year as this movie, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I feel like they saw this music coming out. It was popular. Like, let's do an Amadeus.
I feel like that was like
Amadeus.
1981 or something.
No, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, if we want to check that out, the release date of this was September 19th, 1984.
Okay.
So Amadeus is a 1984 movie directed by Milos Forman, based on a play of the same name by Peter Shaffer. And it basically explores... And it's not supposed to be historically accurate. I'll talk about a few details that they changed. They said, it's meant to be this exploration of professional jealousy. And what does it mean when you recognize that someone who you do not like personally is more gifted in what you're passionate about? And what does that say about God, who blesses one person over another? So basically, they're both court musicians in Vienna in the 1760s. You would know better than I do.
Yeah.
It's before it's before the French Revolution in any case. And they are set up as rivals, and Salieri is the court musician who is the one person who kind of recognizes Mozart's genius, but is at the same time very envious of it at the same time. I said at the same time twice. At the same time, really jealous of it at the same time. And he decides that in order to punish God for blessing this person with musical talents beyond his, he's going to sort of systematically work to destroy Mozart's career. And his big coup d'etat is going to be he's going to have Mozart write a requiem for him, kill Mozart, and then pass the requiem off as his own, sort of stealing the genius from Mozart. Shenanigans ensue. It doesn't work out, which is, and it
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. And it's actually based on a play called, inspired by, there's an original play by Pushkin called Mozart and Salieri, and which is apparently even more, Salieri is even more terrible to Mozart in the play.
I feel like Pushkin has come up in conversation in other movies we've talked about, but I'm not remembering what it was.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So anyway, and it's basically told in a series of flashbacks. Salieri is an old man who has just tried to commit suicide, telling his story to a priest about why he has this regret about what he did to Mozart, and that's told in flashbacks. We watched a director's cut of it. So when it came out in the theaters originally, it was 2 hours and 40 minutes. I think in 2001, Milos Forman released a director's cut, which is...
What year?
2001.
Oh, okay.
Maybe, I think. And it's about 20 minutes longer, has some extra scenes in it. We can talk a little bit more about what that meant when we watched it. But the actual original theatrical cut is not available right now. But they're talking about re-releasing it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because to make the director's cut, they had to remaster the negatives.
Oh.
So, anyway. All good. Let's see. So it was released in September 1984. It was made for $18 million.
Okay.
And made like $52 million in the United States and $90 million worldwide. And it stars F. Murray Abraham as Salieri, Tom Hulse.
Yeah, I don't know how you say his name. Probably Hulse.
As Mozart, Elizabeth Berridge as his wife Costanza, Simon Callow, who is a British actor, who plays one of Mozart's friends who runs the vaudeville, who played the original Mozart when the play opened on the West End.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
there's,
cool.
there's a whole bunch of that stuff going on. Mm-hmm. Christine Ebersol's in it, too. She plays a soprano who Salieri is in love with, and who Mozart
Stups.
Stops in a good German way. It's fun because she's a musical theater performer, which is how I know her. But she acts but does not sing, because having her sing would be not correct to the music.
Because it's Mozart opera, it's not musical theater.
Jeffrey Jones is in it. He's Emperor Joseph. And Cynthia Nixon's in it, from Miranda for Sex and the City. She was 17 when this was made.
Okay, I was going to ask, like, how old is she? 'Cause she looks like she's about 12.
Yeah. And then a couple other people were in it. Barbara Brine was in it. She plays Costanza's mother. And I know her from, she is the original Jack's mother from Into the Woods. George Surratt's mother in Sunday Park with George. And that's what I know her from. So she's in that. She died last year, and she lived in Minneapolis for a long time.
Oh, I didn't. I mean, obviously I didn't know that.
Who knew? A couple of things that are interesting. It was mostly filmed in the Czech Republic, which is the sort of stands in for Vienna at the time. And one of the reasons they did that is because there were still cobblestone streets and stuff like that in the Czech Republic. And they only built like 4 sets. Everything else was filmed in set, and they tried to use natural light for the most part. And Milos Forman,
Well, that makes sense, because I do remember the lighting being unique in the movie.
Yeah. And there were all these weird things because it was in 84, so it was still very much having an American production being filmed. I think, and Milos Forman is a Czech citizen who was now an American citizen at the time.
But it wasn't the Czech Republic then, right? It was Czechoslovakia.
It was Czechoslovakia, sorry. So he had defected, I guess, to become an American citizen. So it was a big deal for him to back, and like people thought that their rooms were bugged all the time, and the secret police were watching them and all that good stuff all the time during the filming. But yeah, it's interesting because like it's just beautiful, and the theater that they use for Don Giovanni, and it was the stand-in for the Vienna Opera House, I think, is the actual theater where Don Giovanni premiered. So really, really, really
That's
cool.
so cool.
Let's see. It was nominated for 11 Academy Awards, and it won 8. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Art Direction. The one thing it did not win was original music. And
what was in here? There wasn't any original music.
So like...
was it nominated for that?
No.
Oh, I thought you were saying it was nominated.
So I remember watching the Oscars that year, and the other movie that year that was supposed to get a lot of... That was like the front row was Passage to India, right? Which was by David Lean, based on an E.M. Forster novel. And like, it was pretty clear like they were going to be swept. So Passage to India won Best Original not Screenplay. Best Original Score? Movie score?
Okay.
Yeah. What is that called?
Best score. Best music?
Best Original... it was not song. And the guy got up and accepted the awards. Thank God Mozart wasn't original. It was like the only award they won that night. And then F. Murray Abraham won Best Actor, but who plays Harley Larry? But Tom Hulce was also nominated too. So, I think that's and the other movies that were nominated that year were The Killing Fields, A Passage to India, Places in the Heart, and A Soldier's Story. And I have seen A Passage to India and Places in the Heart. So I think a couple things to talk about a little bit is, do we think it deserved the Best Picture of the year?
I haven't seen any of the other ones, so I don't know. It's like one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
So
we'll say yes. One of the things that's funny is looking at this, so 84, so looking at other movies that came out this year, which was like pretty crazy, was 2010, the year we make contact.
Okay, so I was 7 when the movie came out. Okay.
The Natural.
Oh my God.
Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes, which is the first movie I remember seeing and not liking the movie. Like, I remember watching the movie being, like, bored and wanting it to be over. And that was my first time ever having that experience in a movie theater.
I'm sorry, you brought up 2010. My dad took me to see that in the theater. And this was back in the day when you could do this. I was 7. He got me seated in the movie theater. This is in my little hometown. Like, I think it was called the Georgia 4, and there were 4 screens. And he got me seated, and he went out to get popcorn and drinks and stuff. And the opening scene to 2010, the year we made contact, is them coming out of hypersleep.
Yeah.
But it shows them all in the pods, and I thought that they were monsters or something, and I just was like bawling and crying, and made my dad take me out of the theater because I was terrified. So that started my long relationship with being terrified of aliens.
Right. So. Other movies that came out that year were Footloose, Ghostbusters, and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Came out the same year?
Yeah. And there are really no fiber arts, no knitting or crocheting, but the costumes are amazing, and there's wigs. Yes. And then, sort of, I'm trying to think of say. And then, we'll talk a little bit. So, in terms of best performance, worst performance, I don't think there were any bad performances.
Yeah.
I was really surprised that Elizabeth Berridge, who's the wife, didn't get nominated for Best Supporting Actress. She was really good.
Yeah, she was very good.
But I think a lot of it, like, these are mostly Broadway people. Like, I don't think of any of these people, with the exception of Cynthia Nixon's kind of the only person, but she's a Broadway person, too.
Yeah.
So I didn't think there were any bad performances. I think F. Murray Abraham and Tom Hulce were really, really, really good.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have a controversial opinion.
Okay.
I think that the most important thing in this movie is the music.
Okay.
Because I think...
As opposed to what?
I don't think this movie works unless you're doing Mozart's music. Like, if it was like Bill composer versus Jeff composer.
Oh.
Like, there's a lot of time spent on the music, and a lot of time spent on showing scenes from the operas, the music, and stuff like that. And, the conceit of the movie is that Mozart is this person who writes this miraculous music from God, or that's Salieri's interpretation. And, like, you hear this music, and you're like, yeah. I always got the first scene where, Salieri's talking to the priest, and he's like, plays some pieces of music, and you don't know them, and he plays Eine kleine Nacht music. And you know that. And so I think Mozart, like... I'm going to say Mozart. Like, everyone knows his music.
Yeah.
He's probably the most, I would say, performed class. I mean, I feel like...
Or Bach.
Yeah.
I mean, he's definitely the top 3, I would say.
Yeah,
Beethoven,
Bach,
and Mozart.
Yeah. And so, like, I think his music is really an important part of this movie, and they spend a lot of time on the music. So I saw it in the movie theaters first. I must have been 9 when it came out, 84, 10. So
I mean, you were really old, because I was only 7, and you're much older than me.
I'm much older than you. Well, in September, I don't know when I saw it, and I remember seeing it in the movie theater, and I remember, like, the music being striking, but I just remember the whole thing, the story just, like, grabbing me. And that whole idea that you could admire someone and hate them at the same time. And then it's interesting, I think I saw it when I was like 10, and then we had the soundtrack on tape, and so I listened to that a lot, and then kind of like you said, like, we watched the movie theater, and I remember, like, having an impression on me, but I think it wasn't until I rented it, like, several years later, a double VHS tape, I think, or maybe not, I can't remember, where I sort of, like, it all sort of connected for me, if that makes sense. Like, the first viewing, I was kind of too young to absorb the whole of it, and then I watched it later, and then I'm like, oh. So, yeah.
Sorry, I was sitting here thinking about... I think I must have watched it either my senior year of high school or my after my freshman year of college, because it was on DVD, and it was at my dad's house in Atlanta.
Okay.
And so that would have been the timing. Not that it matters. It was just I remember watching it on DVD.
Yeah.
So I was trying to remember when DVDs came out and all that.
Right, or when they were readily available.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. So let's talk about that. So we both saw our original experience. This was with the theatrical release,
right?
And we saw director's cut.
And you had not seen the director's cut, nor had I.
No.
Okay.
And so it was interesting because, this is a movie I know really well, as you do too. And so all of a sudden you'd have these scenes that weren't there before.
Yeah.
Which kind of would change the meaning of the film a little bit,
yes,
or bring a different perspective to it. And it's interesting because I felt for the most part, and maybe it's just like how it's the way you originally consume something.
Mm-hmm.
So, your first experience with whatever is the way that you prefer it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like interesting. I didn't feel, except for one of the scenes, they were fine, but like they didn't necessarily add much to the movie, if that makes sense. And even that scene, the scene where Salieri tries to
sexually harass,
basically Costanza. Like when I was watching, I'm like, this is, I don't like this. I like the original, the way it was cut originally, but then in a later part of the movie, I'm like, oh, that explains her reaction to him later, why she doesn't like him so much. But I kind of, it's like, I think I would prefer to see the original theatrical release again, if I'm going to watch it again.
Yeah, I do think, most of the time when I've watched director's cuts versus, and I there's not a lot of movies where I care enough about the movie to watch different cuts, but so I haven't watched a lot of original cuts and then director's cuts to compare.
Yeah.
But I feel like the director's cut made Salieri a less, likable's not the word, but a less, I said the word before when we were watching the movie, empathetic or sympathetic character, because I feel when I watched it the first time, you could somewhat understand the level of insanity, or not insanity, but the level of frustration that he was having, because he was trying to dedicate his life to God so he could be an amazing composer.
Right.
And you've got this twerp Mozart who's running around just better than anyone could imagine. And so the scenes that were put back in the director's cut, I feel like made, especially the one where he basically, I don't want to say the word, but like does something horribly to
the wife,
Costanza, the wife, Mozart's wife. I feel like all of those scenes make him more of a monster,
or I would say more of a creep, right? Like it was a lot of like, it made him seem a little, I don't know if petty is the right word, but like it showed him doing a lot of like kind of just more creepy stuff than
and I feel like the plot where he was trying to subvert anything that Mozart was trying to accomplish, I didn't get that from the first cut, from the theatrical cut, where he said he was actively working against Mozart and that he was going to take God's creature and destroy it, but I felt like in the director's cut, he was like
more puppet mastering. Because I feel in the original theatrical cut, what makes it interesting is like in a lot of ways he doesn't have to ruin Mozart.
Right.
Mozart is ruining himself through his own behavior, and then also Mozart is being ruined because the music culture of the time isn't prepared for him, and that's all true. So there's this whole thing where he is trying to do everything to keep Marriage of Figaro from succeeding, but it doesn't succeed. The emperor doesn't like it.
Right. But I think you're exactly right. I think what Salieri is overtly doing in the director's cut is trying to find ways to prevent Mozart from making money.
Yeah.
Which is what drives Mozart to work harder and harder and harder, and ultimately what destroys him, his inability to make money and feeling like a failure.
Yeah.
And so he talks against him so that he can't get students. He causes Marriage of Figaro and Don Giovanni to fail.
Right.
As far as making money goes.
Yeah.
Trying to think if there were other overt things, and those were less overt in the theatrical cut.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of the same experience I had with that. So yeah, a couple of other things about it. So some of the errors, so to speak, again, was
were these the things that were not historically accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like one of the things is like Salieri had a wife and child. So like, you know, in the movie it's a big deal. He promises never to be chased. To be chased.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with the soprano, it's pretty likely that Salieri had sex with her and Mozart did not. The other thing that's really interesting is at the very end where the body's in a mass grave. So that's a very effective moment of the movie. But what he was actually buried was a pauper's grave, which means it was unmarked. And then every 17 years ago, after 10 years, you could put someone else in the grave. So that's why they were able to find his grave. Not that he was in a mass grave, but like it was just they didn't have a headstone. But they knew 10 years later we can put someone else in this grave.
So that's why they were able to find his grave, or were not?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So, but it's not that same scene where they dump him in this pit with all these graves and they throw the lime on him and stuff like that. Let's see. Sort of fun facts. So in the scene where Salieri is transcribing from him on the bed,
Near the end of the movie,
Tom Hulse deliberately skipped lines to throw him off.
Okay, you got to say more because I don't know what you're talking about.
So in order to achieve the impression that Salieri's like can't keep up, Tom Hulse was like saying the wrong line and skipping stuff and like not keeping everything correct and getting it so like it made Salieri seem like he was more frantic and confused.
That's cool.
I'm assuming that was like okay.
Well, I think there are techniques that actors do that other actors understand what they're doing and stuff like that. So that's cool.
Well, and you're a good enough actor to like, I can use this or something like that. It was from Natural Light. Everyone has an American accent in it, which is interesting because
that's true.
Simon Callow's British, but yeah, the idea was he didn't want the actors being worried about.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did Simon Callow play Christopher? Who was the guy opposite Shakespeare in so many Shakespeare stories? The famous actor that they think maybe wrote some of Shakespeare's plays, Christopher.
No.
There was never
Christopher Marlowe.
Christopher Marlowe. I thought there was a. I feel like there is something where he played in a Shakespeare movie.
He's in Shakespeare in Love.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of.
He's somebody in Shakespeare in Love, like everyone else.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. What else? So Amadeus the play won the Tony for best play, and the musical adaptation won best movie. That's happened 4 times and this is only the 4th time it's happened for My Fair Lady, The Sound of Music, and A Man for All Seasons. So let's see. The original Broadway play starred Ian McKellen and Tim Curry.
Oh wow!
Ian McKellen is Salieri, and Tim Curry is Amadeus.
God, that makes my head explode.
And after Tim Curry was done, Mark Hamill took over. And it was
Luke Skywalker?
Yeah.
Okay.
And apparently it was really, really good. But Milos Forman was like, I can't cast you because of the Star Wars thing.
Oh, yeah.
But like everyone read for these parts.
Yeah.
What else? And then Simon Callow was the original Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart in the thing, and Cynthia Nixon was 17 at the time.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
Anything else you should talk about?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I see this movie, I don't know, many times.
Yeah.
So
I was glad to watch it again.
And now for something completely different.
And mine, I don't have nearly as much to talk about because there is very little online about this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
What movie are we talking about?
Oh, I'm sorry. Rambo First Blood Part 2.
Is that like Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2?
It's funny you should say that because there were multiple variations that the iterations that the title went through.
Okay.
It was going to be Rambo First Blood, it was going to be Rambo First Blood The Mission. Mm-hmm. And then it was going to be just Rambo The Mission, and then it was going to be just The Mission. And so, yeah, I went through a lot of iterations. I'm just making
the jokes, like they didn't film Part 1 and Part 2 at the same time and then split them up like the Harry Potter movies. Okay.
No, that's a I know you're kidding, but yeah, I think that's a recent advent. I'm going to summarize the movie, the plot, because we've read in the comments that some people don't actually watch the movies, but they still listen to our movie reviews, which I think is super awesome. And also, when I'm listening to movie podcasts, I like to just get reminded what the plot is.
Yep.
So the movie takes place 3 years after Rambo First Blood. I mean, ostensibly Part 1, I assume.
Yes. They didn't know at the time.
Right. So, former U.S. Army Green Beret John Rambo, he's at a penal labor facility. Mm-hmm. His commanding officer during the Vietnam War, Sam Troutman, shows up and says that the U.S. government is under pressure about the prisoners of war still being held in Vietnam, and so they would like to send him in to find out if that's true, if there really are POWs out there.
Can I ask you a question?
Okay, yes.
So, how did the government come to the determination?
You're getting to that? Getting to that.
Okay. Sorry,
I have to sit, because I like to interrupt. I have to sit and hold my tongue until you get to the end of your parts, and then you can ask questions, because I do the same thing to you.
Teacher, I have a question.
So, I was literally about to get to that part.
Okay.
So they're sending him in, and the way that they picked him was because there was a computer that spit out, like they put in all the people, and they said the computer spit out his name, that this was the guy to do this solo mission. And so Rambo says, yes, I'll do it, as long as I get a presidential pardon and can get out of prison. So then Rambo flies to Thailand, and he meets up with the mission members and Marshal Murdoch, who is the evil bureaucrat.
Sure.
Overseeing everything. And he says, go in, take pictures, do not rescue anybody. Just go in and take pictures. And I think it's meant to be just so that they can get the pictures and get the evidence, and then they'll go in and rescue them later, just so that Rambo doesn't get killed and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so then Rambo is going to get airdropped over the area where the POW camp is, but his parachute gets caught, he cuts himself free, and all he's left with is his bow and arrow and his knives. So then he is assigned a contact, which it's a beautiful woman, come to find out, Ko Bao. So Ko Bao has arranged for river pirates to take them up to the POW camp, and when they get there, they find out that there are POWs, and he rescues one of them who's tied up outside the camp, which he's not supposed to do. So then they go back to the boat, and they've been double-crossed by the pirates. Big surprise.
River pirates are the worst.
I know. So then a Vietnamese gunboat comes up and shoots up their boat, and then he uses an RPG to disable the gunboat. There's this fight, and then the fight's still going on, and they get to the extraction point, and the helicopter comes down that's supposed to take them and rescue them, and he sees that so the people on the helicopter that are supposed to rescue them include the mission people, but also Troutman, the good guy that got him out of the penal colony. And basically, the bad bureaucrat, Murdoch, says, abort the mission, and the people in the helicopter like hold Troutman up with guns to say so they've been double crossed by their own people, by their government.
Oh my God!
By the U.S. government.
Is that a metaphor?
I might be. I don't know.
Okay.
So then they get because they were not able to get out, they are taken by the Vietnamese back to the POW camp, and the Soviets show up. The Russians show up.
Because you can't not have Soviets.
You can't not have Soviets in a movie in 1985. So the Soviets show up and they interrogate Rambo to find out where the rest of the people are. The rest of the United States people are there. And they say, they tell Rambo to do a radio message back to the base to say, don't try to rescue anybody, or bad things will happen. And so he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Rambo says, I'm not going to do that. And so they torture him. And finally he relents and says he'll do it once they start threatening one of the POWs. But what he actually does is contacts their base and says, Murdoch, who's the bad bureaucrat, I'm coming for you. Then Ko shows up, the beautiful woman shows up and helps them escape, and then sorry, I got her from where I'm caught up. And so they're on the run, and they kiss, and you know, there's a big scene, and then she asks him if he'll take her to the United States, and she says yes, and then seconds later she's shot up with a machine gun.
It's like I didn't see that one coming.
I didn't see it coming either, right? It's not like that's a trope of every movie in the 80s. Okay. So then he buries her, but he takes a strip of fabric from her dress and her necklace, and he puts the band-aid or the headband around his head, and classic Rambo look. And then he starts sneaking up on Russians and Vietnamese bad guys and shooting them and exploding things and all kinds of stuff. And then they chase him with the Soviets chase him with a helicopter. He gets that helicopter and uses it to blow up the POW camp and freeze the POWs. They all get on the helicopter, and then they're chased by another helicopter, and then they trick the Russians, and he pretends like their helicopter exploded, and then he was like wounded in the helicopter that he used to free the POWs with, and then, but just kidding, he's alive, and he shoots a rocket. And there is a comment in the IMDb art thing about how if he'd shot that rocket from inside the helicopter, the blowback would have fried everybody in the helicopter. But anyway, he blows up the Russian helicopter, and then he gets back to base, and he walks up to the bureaucrat. Well, first he takes his gun and he shoots up all the computers.
The computers that selected him for this mission.
That selected him for this mission. Because obviously the computers are the problem.
Yeah.
And then he goes and gets the evil bureaucrat and punches him and demands that all the other POWs be rescued, because all he wants is for his country to love him as much as he loves his country. And then Troutman says to him, how are you going to live? And he says, day by day, and walks off into the sunset. Now, it's interesting to me because, you know, you talk about, like, times in history and how, you know, I'm 47, but I feel like I'm still 20, you know, and it's like I feel like I was in high school yesterday.
Right.
So it's like when things happen in time get confusing. At this time, there were about 2,500 Vietnam veterans still missing.
Yeah.
When this movie was made, so it was kind of I mean, not that it's not now, but it was at the time a thing that was on a lot of people's mind.
Right, and it was just what, a little over 10 years since the war ended.
Right.
I'm not sure when we actually left.
Yeah, I don't know that date off the top of my head either, but. One of the things that was interesting is a lot of people think that this was done as a Reagan, what is the word I'm looking for? Propaganda film. Yeah. But Sylvester Stallone, who did who wrote all the political parts of the screenplay.
Okay. James Cameron wrote the rest.
He wrote the violence.
Okay.
James Cameron wrote the violence, and Sylvester Stallone wrote the politics.
I'm beginning to see a divide here of what I liked in this film and what I didn't like in this film, and I'm beginning to ascribe authorship.
So Sylvester Stallone's point was, actually, I want it to be more moderate and show both sides of how, because Reagan ultimately is the president in this movie during this movie, and Reagan was the one who betrayed ultimately Rambo and put him in prison. And so he wanted to say that he was fighting against the evil bureaucrat, which was supposed to represent the United States government, who wasn't rescuing the POWs.
Gotcha. Okay.
So so it was interesting. So it was released on May 22nd of 1985. The director was one who didn't do a lot of stuff that I knew. So the director was George P. Cosmatos.
Okay.
Cosmatos. Before Rambo, he had done a movie called Of Unknown Origin, which is where a man becomes destructively obsessed with killing a dangerous rat, which has taken residence in his recently renovated house.
Okay.
And then after this Rambo movie, he did Cobra, which was a cop movie with Sylvester Stallone.
Right.
And then right after that, he did a movie called Leviathan, which I've never seen. It was an underwater deep sea miner. Sorry, let me try that again. Underwater deep sea miners encounter a Soviet wreck and bring back a dangerous cargo to their base on the ocean floor with horrifying results. The crew of the mining base must fight to survive against a genetic mutation that hunts them down one by one.
Sounds like
The Abyss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except for the aliens are nice.
Right.
In The Abyss. So, as I said, the screenplay was done by James Cameron, who did the first draft.
Right.
And then Sylvester Stallone came along and rewrote and added the political stuff. James Cameron wrote the screenplay for this while he was writing the screenplay for The Terminator and Aliens.
Gotcha.
So the cast, it was Sylvester Stallone played Rambo, Richard Crenna played Troutman, who was Sylvester Stallone's commanding officer. Charles Napier played Murdoch, who was the evil bureaucrat guy. And then Julia Nixon played Coe. And then other people. Oh, Martin Cove, is that you say his name? Played one of the bad guys who was helping Troutman, the evil bureaucrat. Martin Cove was the evil
Coach in the Karate Kid.
Coach in the Karate Kid, yes. So, now here's where it gets interesting.
Oh, okay.
The budget was $25 million. It made $300 million worldwide.
It was when that movie came out. So this is 84. So I was 10. We used to play Rambo.
Oh yeah.
And you'd shoot the arrows.
It was the second highest grossing film in the United States that year.
Okay.
And the third highest grossing film worldwide that year.
Wow.
And it was the first film to ever appear in more than 2,000 United States theaters simultaneously.
Wow.
So it was shot between June and August 1984 in Guerrero, Mexico, and also in parts of Thailand.
Okay.
And then the other thing is that I didn't see this, but I guess the movie was dedicated to Clifford Wenger. Because he was one of the special effects people, and he died when they were filming one of the waterfall explosions, and he fell to his death.
Oh my God.
During the filming. So, okay, so it won the Razzie for Worst Picture, Worst Actor for Sylvester Stallone, Worst Screenplay for Sylvester Stallone and James Cameron, and Worst Original Song, Peace in Our Life, sung by Sylvester Stallone's brother, Frank Stallone.
Yep.
However, it also won the Academy Award for Best Sound Editing.
Yeah.
Which I think we've run into that before.
Yeah.
Other movies that were nominated that year for Worst Picture were Fever Pitch, which is where an investigative journalist gets hooked on the subject of his inquiry, professional gambling, starring Ryan O'Neal.
Okay.
And I think I read that Ryan O'Neal died shortly thereafter. Or I might have read that wrong.
That's right.
Okay. Revolution, which was an Al Pacino American Revolution movie. Rocky IV.
I love Rocky IV.
And Year of the Dragon. Thing about Rocky IV. The bad guy, the bad Soviet guy in Rambo was supposed to be played by Dolph Lundgren.
Oh.
But they then cast him in Rocky IV with Sylvester Stallone. So they're like, well, we don't want you in both movies because that's too weird.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of funny.
That would have been awesome, though.
Yeah. And then Year of the Dragon was the only... was the other worst film, and that was a police detective cracks down on organized crime in Chinatown after the murders of triad and mafia leaders, starring Mickey Rourke.
Okay.
And it was the only film in the Rambo series to be nominated for an Oscar.
Okay.
Yeah, and so other things to talk about. Oh, and so there just weren't a lot of other interesting, like, tidbits or, like, you know...
I just like the thing where you were talking that, what was the woman who was the...
Oh, Nixon?
Yeah.
Julia Nixon?
So she has a line where she goes, Rambo, you're not expendable. And it's a very silly line.
Yeah.
And she said that, like, even now, people come to her gas stations and say, Rambo, you're not expendable.
Yeah. Other topics to discuss are best performance, worst performance. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we can take this out of, like, future discussions because I don't ever feel like it's an interesting thing to discuss because it's like...
Well, sometimes you get a good performance in a bad movie.
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone was good in this movie as long as he did not talk.
Yes. He did say when he was interviewed, he was on Graham Norton, like, within the last 10 years, and he said that because there's 4 Rambo movies. Right. This was the least favorite of the Rambo movies because he felt like it was so cartoonish.
Yeah, but I mean, he's still a good action star.
They talked about what he put himself through physically to look like he did in this movie. So the knitting and fiber content, don't think so.
Nope.
Personal history with the film, I'm sure I watched it, but...
So, yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw it on VHS at a slumber party when I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
Like, probably everyone else my age, but... Yeah. Like, this movie was a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, you knew about it before you knew about it.
Yeah.
It's also one of the movies that... I read the Mad Magazine parody of it before I saw the movie. So I used to go,
oh my god, you're such a Mad Magazine reader.
So we used to go to the Winn-Dixie, and we would go read Mad Magazine.
Oh my god.
And like that was how I experienced a lot of movies in the 80s, was not necessarily seeing them, but reading the Mad Magazine parody of them and then maybe seeing them.
Yeah. The other thing was...
And that was where I realized... They made a joke about, like, oh no, I'm totally not going to die, Rambo.
Oh, yeah.
So...
the other thing that... did it deserve the award it received? So, I think what's interesting is I couldn't find anything online about why it received the Razzie, and that's something where...
Yeah.
I don't know if they put anything out there or if it's only like...
Right.
I don't know if the Razzies, the Golden Raspberries are like broadcast where you can watch them.
No. There is an event, but it's not broadcast. The other thing about the Golden Raspberries is, like, you can become a voter yourself.
Oh, that's right.
So, but, like, who knows? That's 20, 30 years ago. But, like, in 1985, who knows what that structure was.
The reason I bring that up is because I couldn't find anything about, any discussion, even on Reddit, about why this won the Razzie.
Right.
Because so many people say that, because it didn't receive a lot of critical success, but people loved the action movie that it was. And it being, a lot of people talked about how this is one of those, it was like in a bunch of top 25 lists of the best, worst movies to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Like bad movies that are fun to watch.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So, it was a huge financial success.
Yeah.
They did 2 more Rambo movies. Like,
Right.
it's just interesting to me as to why this one. I guess it goes back to the whole thing we talk about where the Golden Raspberries like to do notoriously bad movies. But, like, why wouldn't they have done, like... Well, I guess Rocky IV was probably a big success.
Yes. I would say... I love Rocky IV. And I saw it in the movie theaters. And, like, it was... Anyway. But, like, Rocky IV is a more ridiculous movie than... I mean, this is a pretty ridiculous movie, but Rocky IV is, like... Rocky IV is a lot more fun. This is still a fun movie to watch. Like, the action sequences were really good.
Well, one of the things that Sylvester Stallone has gone on to say, which I think maybe explains a little bit of why it won the worst movie, was that he said, I know that people had veins popping out of their eyeballs with how hard they were rolling them at the dialogue.
Yeah.
But he's like, I was trying to get points across... Because, like, Sylvester Stallone wrote that dialogue.
Yeah.
He was trying to get points across about the American public at the time and the balance between wanting to rescue those POWs, but then the American government not wanting to
be involved.
Not wanting to restart the Vietnam War.
I think it's... my guess is that it got it because he wrote it.
Yeah.
Because the Golden Raspberries love to pick out people who, with hubris, right? And that's their favorite thing to get at, right? Yeah. And so it's probably because he wrote it, and it was a big hit. And I mean, it's a good bad movie.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous and silly, and like literally, so the sound effect for the arrows is really funny. So when you were shot an arrow, it sounded like a gun going off almost. Yeah. But yeah,
I didn't see anything about that either.
Yeah.
I was hoping to find online discussion about stuff like that, and I just couldn't find it.
But it sounds like all 5 of the movies they nominated were the same sort of thing. Yeah. These sort of like tough guy, action crime movies or whatever. Yeah. So, with the exception of Rocky IV, which is awesome.
All right, so now let's figure out what we're watching next week. Okay.
I just saw the worst movie. Oh dear.
Yeah. So the best picture of that year was A Beautiful Mind.
I have not seen that.
Oh, it's good.
Okay,
it is good. What was the one with Matt Damon?
Good Will Hunting.
Okay. But this is the one with Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
And then the worst movie is Freddy Got Fingered.
I'm excited. I've not seen that.
I mean, it has an unpleasant title.
It's Tom Green.
And I've heard of it before.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what we're in for.
I'm actually excited to see both those movies.
Yeah. I have no idea what we're in for, so.
Right.
Or what our audience is in for, because I want everybody to watch it with us. So, all right. So we will hopefully be back in 2 weeks.
Yep.
I'll have hopefully some more squares done to show, some more work on and who knows, maybe we will have both started new knitting projects.
Perhaps, or finish some of the ones we have not finished yet.
That's right. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll be back later.
Bye.